Failed scheduling, no nodes available to schedule pods 2 minutes ago. If you don't want to make the same mistakes as me and go down this rabbit hole of KCNA learning and going through all the Kubernetes documentation and feeling entirely overwhelmed by all this terminology, and you want to actually get hands-on, deploy a cluster, start to tinker around, start to pull apart Kubernetes, then that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. So if you follow along the steps here, you'll end up with a simple cluster running on EKS in Amazon, managed by Terraform. Okay, so last year, basically I put out this post on Instagram. I just finished, I think, one of my AWS exams, and I was thinking about what to do next. Basically, everyone seems super excited about Kubernetes. So I went and found the KCNA, which is a sort of associate entry-level exam for Kubernetes, and I thought, right, I'm gonna start there. I'm going to build a mental model of the sort of the territory of Kubernetes itself, learn some of the terminology, and then I'm gonna jump in there.
Sounds good, doesn't work.
What actually transpired is basically me spending 2-3 weeks doing very theoretical learning about Kubernetes. Then fast forward to about 2 weeks ago. It's a new year and I decided I was going to go back into some of that learning about Kubernetes, but I was not going to make the same mistakes as last time, and I was actually going to try and get hands-on and start to deploy, mess around, touch some stuff as well. Essentially, all I did was basically deploy a cluster with Terraform, but then once you've got that, you've got this sort of platform to jump off from when you are then running through any different tutorials, deploying any different tools, or just exploring within Kubernetes. So one thing I will say though is this video kind of requires you to have a few prerequisites. So you need to at least be comfortable sort of installing things on the terminal. Some primitive understanding of what Terraform is will help. Ideally, some understanding of AWS is going to be important. I think you're really going to struggle if you don't have a foundation on AWS. You don't need to know all of that stuff in order to do what we're doing. You don't want to go down a rabbit hole where you spend ages doing those prerequisites. You need to have at least played around with them before you get on with this tutorial. I'm going to hop over onto my computer and then let's just get started deploying stuff, get hands-on and start to see what we're working with. Okay, so one of the reasons actually to create a cluster like this for our learning is because if you go to learn other tools, and I've taken Helm here as an example, what you'll see is when you come down into the guides here for getting started is one of the prerequisites is going to be that you need a Kubernetes cluster deployed. So here is the repo that we'll be going through. There's a bit of instructions here and also the diagram that we'll talk about today. I've included here as well interesting links that you will probably want to follow. So let me open all of those up and just quickly show you what they are. First of all, we have the Getting Started with EKS guide, which comes in the EKS documentation. This will help you get a cluster set up. Now, what that doesn't do is actually show you how to deploy a container onto Kubernetes. It just tells you how to get the Kubernetes cluster up. Now, the only ones that they have are showing you with EKS CTL, which I don't necessarily recommend. I actually recommend using Terraform. And the other one is using the console within AWS, which is okay as you get started, but I think you should quickly try and move into defining this infrastructure as code. It's going to help you run through iterations of your configuration faster. Second document that was useful then is this document about deploying a sample application. That Getting Started guide up here, that is about getting the cluster up and running, but this deploy a sample application will show you how to deploy an actual application on top of EKS, which is exactly what we're doing today. Now, what I've created is inspired by this, and I've just simplified and changed a few aspects, but if you wanted to, you could follow this tutorial as well to the letter on top of your cluster that's running inside of Kubernetes to deploy a sample workload, and there's lots of good information there. It's a pretty good, generic starting guide. Now, I must say as well, there are other tools that you can use for running, let's say, a Kubernetes cluster locally. You've got tools like Minikube or Kind, which allow you to run a cluster on your local machine, essentially. Now, the reason that I don't want to do that is because things don't work with Kubernetes exactly the same in the cloud as they do on these sort of local emulator tools, which is exactly why I want to deploy directly into the cloud first. Basically, what we've got is this single main.tf file. We have a VPC resource that we're going to be creating. We're going to create 3 different subnets inside of that VPC, and then we're going to use this EKS module down here. So this is the GitHub page for the module that we're actually deploying. If you go into this GitHub repo, you go into the examples here, what you'll actually see as well is you have different examples for the different managed sort of, so we're going to use the managed node groups here, which if you click in there, you'll see an example. And if I go into the Terraform, we'll see an example that is essentially a more complicated version of what we are doing today. So that's going to be configuring some of the managed node groups, telling it what type of instances to run and things like that. But for the sake of get up and running, we've got 47 lines of code here in Terraform, not a lot at all, and that's going to get us a cluster to get started with. Now, obviously, before you can run this Terraform code, you also need to have the Terraform binaries installed on your machine. Now inside this repository, I also have an installation script which works for present day, i.e. that's going to install some of the latest versions for Terraform, kubectl, which you will need, and also the AWS CLI. You can use that as a starting point depending on when you're watching this video. That might already be out of date, so go ahead and check the instructions over on the website for each of those different tools and the operating system that you're using and install things so that you've got those up and running. But let's run that installation script here today and see what we get. So that's going to install Terraform for me. We can see that now downloading and installing Terraform. It's going to install the AWS CLI, and then I've also got that install script configured so that it's going to ask me for my AWS credentials as well. And then it's going to start running a Terraform apply, type yes in there and get that running, and that's going to start provisioning all of those resources into my AWS account, including that VPC, the cluster, and everything else that's packaged inside of that module as well. Now as that's running, let's go head over into AWS, because if you want to, you can watch some of this stuff provisioning. So if I go over into VPC, so 2 VPCs, I've got the default one, and then I've got the one that I've just provisioned over here. So there we go. There's my VPC. We should also have some attached subnets as well. So you can see those subnets down here have been created as well. And what if we go over into EKS, probably about now, we'll actually start to see our cluster should be creating.
Okay, just hold up for 1 second. As I'm actually going through and editing this just now, I am realizing that some people watching this will be expecting a sort of play-by-play explanation tutorial. It's not possible. The video would be like 4 hours long. So if you're thinking, whoa, this guy's talking way too fast, that's okay. It's probably not the right video for you or not the right video right now. Go have a look into those prerequisites and then come back to the video. Otherwise, let's carry on.
Now, if you wanted to, you could actually do some of this stuff within the console. The reason that I didn't want to do that and the reason that I want to use Terraform is that's going to give you a nice feedback loop for your learning, and also it's the way that you'd actually run this type of configuration in production. So as you're going along here, if you want to tweak that Terraform module, if you want to go back into that main.tf file, you can adjust some of these properties, let's say of this module, and rerun Terraform apply, and that's going to apply into your cloud account. Also, when you're done, you can run Terraform destroy and bring down all of those resources as well. You could also do this with some other tools. One of them notably is EKS-CTL, which is a sort of command line for provisioning Amazon EKS. I don't like it a lot. What it does is it gives you an abstraction on top of EKS, but quite frankly, it's not an abstraction that I particularly enjoy or like too much. I prefer having this inside of Terraform itself. Now, while that's actually provisioning, let's go ahead and have a look at this diagram. If I go ahead and look on this side of this diagram here, this is our AWS account. This is a very simple representation of what we're doing. So now we're deploying an EKS cluster. Inside that cluster, we're going to need a node. That node is going to be running on EC2, and that's essentially like your compute. That is what Kubernetes itself is orchestrating on top of. That's where your workloads are going to go. Inside of that, we'll have a single pod, and inside that pod, we'll have a container running Nginx. Now that Nginx container that's in red is principally the entire reason that you're deploying all of this stuff in Kubernetes, is to run that application. Now, one of the questions you might have about EKS is a managed service. So what that basically means is that Amazon is doing some of the management for you, and that's what you're paying for with EKS. So principally what Amazon is actually managing is mainly the control plane of Kubernetes. Now, if you go read the Kubernetes documentation, you'll read about the Kubernetes API, you'll hear about the etcd data store, you'll hear about reconciliation loops. Now, all of that is actually being managed for AWS inside of their AWS account. You don't have to know about it. That's kind of like magic that happens under the hood. The other benefit, and we'll talk about this a bit more, is also we're using what is called a managed node group. Now, I've grabbed the screenshot from the EKS documentation, but you can find it in there as well. So there are principally 3 different ways that you can run nodes inside of EKS. We have managed node groups, which is where AWS is managing some of these initial containers that are booted up onto our nodes. We have self-managed nodes, which are more flexible, but we have to do a lot more of the management ourselves. So I've gone with managed node groups for now and we can see those being configured actually if you go back into our Terraform module. We can see in here we have EKS managed node groups, and we have some of the properties. Okay, so now unfortunately that diagram is a simplified version of what we're deploying. There is actually more to this, which is even more complex. Now, before I even show this, don't worry about a lot of the complexity in here. I've tried to represent a lot of the things that are being deployed for this module, but a lot of those things are handled for us. However, I wanted to show you it because I want you to know what's actually happening under the hood of that module as well. Okay, so on the left-hand side, same as before, the control plane still managed by AWS. Wonderfully, that doesn't increase in complexity because it belongs to Amazon. They're managing that for us. Wonderful. But we're deploying this cluster into AWS. So what do we need as part of this cluster? Let's go ahead and zoom in on this and have a look. So within that cluster, one of the things that we'll be deploying is a security group. Essentially, the security group is like a firewall that's dictating the traffic that's going to be able to come in and out of our cluster. That's going to have a very simple security group, and it's just going to allow HTTPS traffic to come into the cluster. One thing that we're also going to deploy in our module is an IAM role. That IAM role is going to have some policies attached, and principally all of that is in service of attaching this KMS key, which is passed through into the control plane and can be used for encrypting things inside of Kubernetes for us. What we should see on top of our cluster, if you go into your cluster, here we have it here, I go into that, and we see down here we've got some different information about our cluster. And what you can see down here, you've got secrets encryption using KMS. So that again is that KMS key that I just mentioned that's also attached to that IAM role. So if you go in here, you can see information about the KMS key. Additionally, we'll actually deploy 2 roles. So the second role will be for EC2. That is just to allow us to scale up our EC2 nodes, and that allows our cluster to scale up and down, create new EC2 nodes and things like that. So if I go in here, and if I go into here, put on created time, confirm that, flip that up, and then we should see, right, so there you are. You have 2 different IAM roles that have been created, one for the cluster and one for the node group. Let's have a quick look at the node group and have a look at the permission policies that are set there. So what we see is we have these 3 different AWS managed policies that have been attached to that, and then we have all the actions in there if you want to dig into that and have a look at those as well. We'll also deploy an OpenID Connect gateway, and we'll also deploy a CloudWatch log group. So we've got our OpenID Connect provider, that's also provisioned over in AWS as well. Now if we head over into the right-hand side of our diagram, what we'll see, same as before, we have our VPC, and inside that VPC we have our subnet where our nodes are being deployed. Those nodes as well will have a security group attached to them. Again, this is like your firewall for the EC2. So you have 2 layers there. You have traffic that's coming into the cluster that's managed by that security group for the cluster, and then we have this firewall security group, which is the security group for the nodes. Okay, so now I'm over in the security group aspect of EC2. Now you can go ahead and dig into these. Like I say, security groups like firewalls, they dictate the traffic that can come in and out of our cluster or our nodes. You can see that one of our security groups has 9 permission entries and 1 outbound for each. Now, if I go in, let's have a look at just this one here, this first security group. This is the one for our nodes and defines the different types of traffic that can flow in and out of our node. Now, if you're trying to access your nodes inside of Kubernetes and the domain is not resolving or something like that, it's quite possible that one of these security rules needs to be changed to be adjusted for the type of traffic that you're trying to access. Those nodes are provisioned off of a launch template, which is principally just a construct inside of AWS that tells AWS what that EC2 should look like. And then within that node, we don't actually just have our running container, we actually have these other containers. These containers are required by Kubernetes in order to run, but part of this sort of managed node group that we're deploying, Kubernetes is actually, and Amazon is going to manage that for us. We should have, basically we've got a core DNS, kubeproxy, and this pod for AWS node, and we've actually got 4 containers actually running inside of those pods. If we go into resources, we see that we've got our different pods. So now I mentioned from before, kubeproxy, 2 core DNS, and an AWS node, but we don't need to worry about that much because basically Amazon's handling that for us. What we do need to worry about though is what we're going to deploy over here with this Nginx container. Now, once this completes, what that's essentially going to give us is it'll give us a cluster. So we'll have a cluster inside of EKS, we'll have some nodes running inside of EC2, but we won't have any applications running. Nothing's going to be running on top of that. We have the compute cluster ready to go, but no applications actually deployed. So what we're going to do in order to do that is, once this install script runs, once it runs this Terraform apply, it's actually going to run this AWS EKS update kubeconfig command. What that essentially does is bind our AWS CLI to EKS, to that cluster, so that we can run kubectl commands. And then with this kubectl command, what we're going to do is we're going to apply this file here called an app.yaml. Now we've actually got 2 different things going on in here. We've got the service down here, and then we have this deployment up here. Let's take them one by one and let me just break down what's actually going on in here. So we have the API, the kind, and the metadata. That is basically just the name of this deployment. Now, a deployment is essentially the management of the release and rollout of a given pod. Now, one thing that I found weird when I was first working with Kubernetes and using deployments, for instance, was that no one mentioned pods. Like, I didn't see the word pod here. If you search for pod, where is pod? Pod's not mentioned. But actually this down here, this spec definition is actually your pod. So what we're doing here is we're defining the containers that would run in our pod. In our case, what we're actually defining is the container image of Nginx on top of this public ECR registry. So what we're saying here is we want one container with name Nginx using this image, and what we're going to do here is also define the resources that needs, how much memory, how much CPU, and then we're going to define which ports are enabled on top of that container. That's going to be useful when we're accessing this container from the outside world. If we were to just do this, that would actually deploy our container, run our pod inside of Kubernetes, but we're not going to be able to access it, at least not from the outside world. Now to do that, we use essentially a service. Now a service is kind of a stable networking interface inside of into your pod. Now you can access the pod directly if you executed and directly SSH'd into that pod itself. You could do that, but we don't want to do that. We want to expose this publicly to the world like a regular website or a microservice that could be publicly accessible, and we'll do that through this service. Service is quite simple. The thing that's interesting or important about the service, again, you've got API version, kind, and metadata. That's just the name of the service that we're giving it. Inside of the AWS console, we'll see this name. But what we're doing here is we're using a type load balancer. There's 3 different types of services inside Kubernetes. You can go read them if you want, but this one, type load balancer, is the most useful because it's the most flexible, and it's the one that allows us to provision a load balancer that points to our container, which is exactly what we need to expose it to the outside world. And then underneath here, what we're going to do again is we're just going to proxy our port. So we're going to say port 80 on top of our load balancer is going to route to port 80 inside of our application. In this case, our application is the one that is defined by the selector, which is this application that we had above here. So what we're going to get there, load balancer that's pointing through to this container. Because we deployed as a service using a load balancer, if we go into services, have a look in there, we should see that attached to that service is that load balancer. But if we wanted to, we could also go and see that inside of the load balancer part of AWS. That's actually an AWS load balancer. If I go in here, load balancers, we should see we now have a single load balancer. If we go in there, what we also see as well is that is managing a listener rule. So TCP port 80 is forwarding now to port 30922, which we can see we've got these different pods running, but also we've got this Nginx example. What that should have done as well is actually under the hood. So if actually we look into that service, so we've got a service here, we should have an example Linux service, that's the one that we want. And then that's now deployed behind a load balancer, which if we click that, so if I change that over to HTTP, we get welcome to Nginx, and then what we have is our application running on Kubernetes in EKS, deployed inside of AWS. That is essentially everything you've got. You've got a basic up and running cluster running inside of EKS. This endpoint, we go through the load balancer into the cluster, into the container, fetch the information, route that traffic back out, and then we can see our welcome to Nginx here. And now you can start to experiment, play around, and explore Kubernetes inside of Amazon EKS yourself.
Now, I know I went very fast through that, but what I really think you should do now is go and have a look at the GitHub repo with all of the code in it and actually try and get this deployed out yourself. That's the real value of this video. It's not watching me, having me explain everything to you. Stick your butt in the chair and actually go through with this tutorial and actually play around with everything that we talked about today. So don't worry if we went too quick. The only way you're going to learn it is actually by getting hands-on. I'll leave the repo link down in the description, and otherwise I will see you in another video.